helped me man up. And I was never a punk. I never, as much difficulty as I had with my military bearing, I always had a great deal of love and respect for all of my shipmates.
Excellent.
So that's what I take away most of all, I think, from those times. And just being kind of, super bad because you're an air traffic controller.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Super bad.
I hear myself. I must have been really annoying.
Yeah. So you did.
In the office.
So you did 4 years as an air traffic controller in the Navy in Corpus Christi, and then what? Your hitch was up, and that was it, or did they ask you to stay on, or did you start sending your resume out, or decide you want to be a beach bum, or what happened?
I'd always thought that I would go back into air traffic control. For a fleeting moment, I thought about re-enlisting because I'm fascinated by carrier operations.
Oh yeah.
And anybody that's seen that, it is so exciting. I mean, they launch them like a rocket off the deck, and landing is a controlled crash.
It blows my mind.
And
yeah, it's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if I ever had a chance, if I could ever get up in a Phantom, that'd be my dream plane. Get up in an F4 and do a deck takeoff and landing. That would be like that. That'd be it for me. That's all I'd need. I don't have to be up in a Tomcat or a space shuttle. Just put me in a Phantom, and I mean those afterburners. Come on, I mean unbelievable.
Wow.
I was into flights.
I know.
I was into flight sims a number of years ago. I used to, when I was recovering from back surgery, I had to lay still for a while. So I was playing flight sims all the time. My favorite ones were the ones where I got to land and take off an aircraft carrier decks. They were so hard and they were so fun. Oh, that's got to be a rush. I mean, a total rush.
It's got to be. And then if you've seen video of what it looks like from the pilot's perspective, and that ship is pitching and rolling and to land it there, oh my gosh, that's some mental toughness there. So there was only one at that time. Women were not allowed on combatant vessels. So aircraft carriers, only place controllers go, no go, except that there was a training carrier based out of Pensacola, the Lexington, that I almost re-upped to do that, but that didn't last long. And I was going to take a couple years off, I don't know, sing in a band. I was very anxious to dye my hair. That's Adamant and everybody were happening. The whole
it was the 80s.
New wave.
Yeah, it was the 80s.
Scene. Yeah, now we're in the 80s, right?
Right.
And so I was really anxious to jump headfirst into that and just assumed I would go back to air traffic control, which I almost did, but I was taking time off. I did not want to be a government worker for quite a while. And So
you left the Air Force, you joined Susie and the Banshees, you went on tour, is that right?
I always wanted to be Joan Jett in The Runaways, but yeah, exactly. Flock of seagulls.
I wanted to be Joan Jett.
I know, bad, right?
Yeah. It was.
But so Navy ends, and next thing you know, I got as far north as my money would take me, which was Houston, Texas.
So you had about $18.
And then the next set of adventures began.
Oh, yeah? What happened?
I went to work for a private investigator.
Really? Now, this is where the plot really thickens, isn't it? This is where things really get like, wow, huh?
Yeah. Well, because you know the story.
I know. Yeah, well, I read about it on the IMDb, but yeah, go ahead. Tell everybody what happened.
Oh, God.
Now, just keep in mind, look, we're coming up on a hard break in 5 minutes. But
anybody yet?
Yeah, just keep in mind, we have a hard break coming up in 5 minutes. But see if you can tell everybody what happened with your experience as a private investigator. And then we'll take a break and we'll come back.
Okay. Strictly by accident. I didn't know what I was going to do in Houston, but moved in next door to someone who worked for a private investigator, and was recruited into that because they needed somebody. They didn't have anybody on their staff. Worked for Clyde Wilson Agency, quite well known, and they needed somebody to go to this pseudo-nudist camp in Big Sur, California, called Esalen. And they didn't have anybody on staff that fit the profile that they needed to do some it's called undercover by others, but pretext work. You're operating under a pretext of being someone else.
Okay.
And so he approached me, and next thing you know, I was on my way to Big Sur, and I was hooked. And so I returned from that, and mission accomplished to the satisfaction of the attorney that had hired the agency to get what she needed in the divorce case she was working there. And I set about trying to make myself indispensable to Clyde Wilson because there's nobody who was going to make a spot for me. So I would just start hanging around the office, and I did all kinds of things. Mr. and Mrs. Donut King getting divorced. She's sure he's turning off the registers to deprive her of money. I get a job. I have the best attitude. I'm making $30 an hour. They're making $5.
Oh, wow.
But I'm there watching, making donuts. So things like that. A lot of doorknob watching, a lot of divorces. Work smarter, not harder. Found a way to get that residual income the easy way and give the client what they needed, which was working with people that were scamming the insurance company with injuries. But the culmination of that and what drove me out of the business because of the visibility it brought to me was a murder case. And Campbell murder case. And there were 4 daughters of an attorney and his wife who had been shot to death in their beds. And 3 of the sisters thought the 4th sister was involved.
Really?
And the police were never able to pin it on them, this gal and her boyfriend, but the sisters were wanting to keep this alive, not only for justice, but as things go, the estate was about to be settled, and they wanted to ensure that this 4th sister did not get her share. So Clyde never expected anything to come of it. You don't involve the police, you know, they don't. You're just, if I'm billing the client and the client's paying, Clyde's happy. The long and short of it, in fact, she was there. She flipped on the light switch, and it was her boyfriend, David West, that shot them. Her children were in the room. They were staying with Grandma and Grandpa, and they even recognized her. The one did. And was too afraid to talk. And I never thought David did it. I knew that he knew about it, and I figured he drove the getaway car, but I didn't think he did it because we know what killers look like, right? And we know how they act. And
well, we think so anyway.
Not that.
Yeah, we think that until we see guys like John Wayne Gacy.
That's
and
the point, right?
Yeah, right.
Ted Bundy, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So,
who would have thought?
As it turns out, he confessed. We got the police involved at the last minute. They weren't expecting anything, and I was wired for sound. My car was wired. My purse was wired, and he confessed to it, and that he had done it, and that he was glad he did it.
Wow.
And nobody knew what was going to happen that first night. There was no plan if he confesses.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. What's our plan A and B again?
Right. Right. I didn't know if they were going to swoop in then, or I had no idea. But, you know, the next day I go to grand jury, and I find out the prosecutor wants a death penalty, which casts my role in this human tragedy in an entirely new light, that I'm the one that has to go in there and get what they need to stick it to them, literally.
Wow.
And, but that was the end of that, and I know what it's like to take the slings and arrows because the defense attorney, like we see in politics, very much wanted to bring me down and undermine my credibility against his client. So, well, then there's a movie of the week.
Well, yeah,
It gets stranger and stranger.
Yeah, well, you know, we're up on Heartbreak here, Kim, and when we get back, I'm going to ask you a couple questions about the movie that was made out of this actual murder mystery that you solved. And before we cut away to our musical segue, Steve, you have a little bit of an announcement you'd like to make to our listeners?
Well, yeah, during my promo on the donation, I got kicked off of Skype, and so I just want to say something again about that. As you know, this is a commercial-free station. There is no real revenue that comes into this station, and Daniel Davison is also not just the producer of this program, he is also the owner of North Star Radio.
Right.
If you're listening to this program now, you have done so through our website at northstar/radio or -radio.co.uk or northstar-radio.com, and you can, when you go to that site, there is a donation button. If you press and it will take you to the PayPal site for North Star Radio, and you can make a donation using either your credit card, your debit card, your bank account. You can write a check, and a small donation will go a long way to keeping North Star on the air. And that's something we really want to do, not just for this show's sake, but for all the good music and the other shows that are currently on North Star and those that are in development even as we speak.
That's right.
And so you can help out. And, we're not asking for big bucks. If you've got big bucks and you want to share that, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But, if everyone listening would just go to the donate page and donate $10, $20, that would go a long way toward keeping North Star on the air, taking care of the bandwidth costs and the internet cost and the equipment costs and the things that we have to repair when they go down.
Mm-hmm.
And so help us out if you can by doing that and pressing the donate button at our website. It will be a great benefit to North Star and to our listeners.
That's right. And for that, you have our sincerest thanks. Of course, we have on the program tonight by way of Skype, Kim Parrish. Kim, thanks again for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So now, after this whole undercover story that you just shared with us, how did this became a movie? How did that happen?
Yeah, that's a whole other adventure. It had gotten a lot of publicity, obviously, and I hate to say, see, here I am, in those days. But you had AP and UPI, right, the wire services, and that's how things got out. There was no internet. And so once it hits the wires, it's everywhere.
Right.
And News of the World, actually, Daniel, they love me. I even got one of the nice pictures there, and I made the cover. But they flew somebody over here.
You didn't get your phone hacked?
No, I'm not interesting enough. No, they don't care about me.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the photographer kept trying to get me to unbutton my shirt more and more, though. I know what kind of shot they were going for.
Pre-paparazzi.
But headlines are so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, pardon?
Pre-paparazzi. Yeah.
The headlines. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I wonder what it would have been like now if it had happened then. But true crime wasn't a genre.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't hear a whole lot about it. And this had all the elements. I was only 22, maybe I was 23, 22 years old. And so once the first editor that puts it out there in the wire service, they define you.
Oh, yeah.
And the elements that they love, and then that's what it becomes. Mm-hmm. And so I hired a clipping service. And I have a big case full of all the newspaper stories that were everywhere and all over the world, actually. They love this story in UK. They love this story in Australia. And all the headlines are the same. And they go something like, sexy sleuth baits and her love baited trap. They're all along that theme. And the only good thing is that the picture, I'm the least photogenic person I know, but the picture that happened to a company that I wasn't unhappy with, otherwise it would have been painful.
Well, that's nice.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, that's a perk, I guess.
Oh, yeah, it could be worse, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the phones start ringing in the agency. I'm on the cover every single day of the front page of the newspapers. So my work comes to a standstill. I can't even work anymore because that was my stock in trade, is going in as who knows what, a number of things, but not an investigator. Mm-hmm. So now my face is everywhere.
Yeah, right.
I can't do that.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Dye your hair and get plastic surgery?
I know, and I did go out and get a couple of wigs, which is kind of ridiculous, because then you look like a person wearing a wig, which looks like a person who's trying to not look like themselves.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't work. Although it was fun being a blonde. I liked being a blonde, but so I tried to be at that time. It was a movie of the week.
Oh, yeah.
Was the Ring, the Golden Ring, a movie of the week, which ideally I wanted to parlay into a weekly series, because that's how Cagney and Lacey started, and what was the name of Tom Selleck, his show,
Magnum.
They all started out as they all started out as movies of the week. So I there were agents that had approached me, and I thought I was being smart. It's like, I'm not going to hire an agent because they'll just cheat me. I'll hire this woman who's a very smart attorney, and what she loses for me, because